Picture this. You're 19 years old. You can't drive. You still live with your mum. And your biggest responsibility up until now is remembering to hand in your A-level coursework on time. Now imagine someone hands you the keys to a £400 million budget and says, "Go run a county, mate." Welcome to the absolutely mental world of British politics, where apparently being old enough to buy a lottery ticket qualifies you to manage more money than most people see in several lifetimes. Meet George Finch, Reform UK's golden boy, Nigel Farage chosen vindicant, and quite possibly the most overpromoted teenager since that kid who became pharaoh at 9. At just 19, George has become Britain's youngest council leader, taking charge of Warwickshire County Council with all the confidence of someone who's clearly never tried to assemble IKEA furniture or figured out how council tax actually works. But here's where it gets properly spicy. Keir Starmer has absolutely had it with this circus, and is not holding back. Now, let's be absolutely clear about what we're dealing with here. George isn't just any 19-year-old. This is a lad who's gone from getting his A-level results to controlling a budget bigger than the GDP of some small countries in the space of about 5 minutes. While his university mates are probably still figuring out how to do their own washing, George is supposedly tackling potholes, social care, and infrastructure project that would make seasoned politicians break out in a cold sweat. But here's where the plot thickens like a badly made custard. Starmer has come out swinging, essentially asking the question we're all thinking. What on earth was Nigel Farage thinking when he backed this appointment? The Prime Minister hasn't exactly minced his words, suggesting that handing a teenager control over £400 million of taxpayer money is like giving a toddler the keys to a Ferrari and expecting them to navigate the M25 during rush hour. The sheer audacity of it all is actually quite breathtaking. George himself admits he's had to defer a university because, and I quote, his university doesn't know what to do with his situation. Imagine that phone call to student services. "Hi, yeah, I can't come to lectures because I'm too busy running a county. Can I get an extension on my essay about political philosophy? Cheers." The poor admissions office probably thought it was a wind-up call. But wait, it gets even better. When pressed about his qualifications for the job, George's response was essentially, nobody's qualified to be a politician. Right, because that's exactly what you want to hear from someone managing nearly £500 million of public money. It's like saying nobody's qualified to perform brain surgery, so why not let your neighbor's kid have a go with a kitchen knife? And here's the kicker that's got Starmer properly fired up. This isn't just some local council quirk that we can all have a laugh about. This is Reform UK's master plan in action. Farage has been positioning George as a future of British politics, comparing him to William Pitt the Younger and Alexander the Great. Because nothing says ready for Westminster like not being old enough to have voted in your first general election. The timing couldn't be more perfect for Starmer's attack, because George's appointment comes at exactly the moment when public trust in politics is at an all-time low. People are struggling with the cost of living. Councils across the country are going bankrupt, and here we have Reform UK essentially treating local government like it's work experience for a school leaver. It's political theatre at its most absurd, and Starmer's clearly had enough of the performance. Let's talk about the optics for a second, because they are absolutely mental. Picture George in his council office, which has apparently been rearranging himself because he thought it worked better, presumably the same way a teenager rearranges a bedroom furniture when they are procrastinating on homework. He's planning to prop a Union Jack against the wall because he can't put pins in the listed building, and is complaining about the municipal green carpet giving off library vibes. Meanwhile, he's supposed to be making decisions about care homes, schools, and road maintenance that will affect hundreds of thousands of people. The most telling moment? When asked about running a council, George cheerfully admits he's never had a serious girlfriend because he's got a job to do and has put a lot aside for this. Mate, you're 19. Most people your age have put aside their physics homework and a part-time job at Tesco, not dating and social development. The fact that he sees romantic relationships as something to sacrifice for political ambition at 19 is either incredibly mature or deeply concerning, depending on your perspective. But here's where Starmer's criticism really hits home. This isn't just about age discrimination or political point scoring. It's about competence, accountability, and whether we completely lost our minds as society. When George confidently states that you don't need qualifications to be a politician, just confidence of the people, is essentially arguing that democracy is just a popularity contest where experience, knowledge, and judgment are optional extras. The £400 million budget isn't play money. It's funding for social services, elderly care, children's services, highways, and waste management. These are life and death decisions for vulnerable people, not practice runs for a future political career. Starmer's pointing out that while George is busy arranging furniture and complaining about carpets, real families are depending on these services to survive. And let's not forget the beautiful irony here. George admits that his university studies in political philosophy won't help him deal with people's potholes or tax rates. So essentially, Farage has backed someone who's simultaneously too inexperienced for higher education, but apparently perfect for running a multi-million-pound public authority. It's like saying you're not ready to learn about cooking, but you're definitely qualified to run Gordon Ramsay's restaurant empire. The really delicious part of Starmer's attack is how it exposes Reform UK's complete disconnect from reality. They are positioning themselves as a party of common sense and practical politics, while simultaneously putting a teenager who can't drive in charge of transport policy and someone who's never paid council tax in charge of setting council tax rates. It's political satire writing itself, except unfortunately it's actually happening. What makes this whole situation even more bonkers is that George himself seemed genuinely lovely and well-meaning. He bounds around like an exuberant Labrador. He's polite to journalists, and he seems to genuinely want to help his community. But wanting to help and being capable of managing a £400 million operation are two very different things. It's like saying you'd make a great airline pilot because you really enjoy looking out of windows on flights. Starmer's essentially calling out the Emperor's new clothes moment here. Everyone's been too polite to say what we're all thinking, that this is completely mental and potentially dangerous. While everyone's been focused on George's age and energy, the Prime Minister's asking the grown-up questions about competence, oversight, and what happens when good intentions meet complex financial management and legal responsibilities. The funniest part? George's mum apparently sleeps fine at night knowing her son controls £400 million of public money. Either she has nerves of steel or she doesn't actually understand what a county council does. Most parents worry when their 19-year-old goes to university with a student loan. Imagine the stress levels when they're managing the entire social care budget for Warwickshire. But here's the serious point behind Starmer's criticism. This isn't just about one over-enthusiastic teenager getting promoted way beyond his abilities. It's about what it says about our political system that this was even possible. How did we get to a point where political parties think it's acceptable to treat local government like an internship program? How did we normalize the idea that passion trumps competence when people's lives are at stake? The fact that George can joke about running a bath while managing hundreds of millions in public funds perfectly encapsulates everything that's wrong with this situation. Starmer's not just criticizing Reform UK, he's holding up a mirror to a political culture that's completely lost touch with the reality of what governance actually means. And let's be honest, Farage's role in all this makes it even more ridiculous. This is a man who spent years complaining about EU bureaucrats being unaccountable and out of touch, and his solution is to put a teenager who's never even voted in a general election in charge of a major local authority. The hypocrisy is so thick you could cut it with a knife and serve it at a parish council meeting. So there you have it. Starmer calling out the absolutely bonkers situation where Reform UK thinks giving a 19-year-old control of £400 million is somehow good governance. It's political theatre, social experiment, and cautionary tale all rolled into one gloriously British mess. Whether George succeeds or crashes and burns, one thing's certain. It's going to be absolutely fascinating to watch. Thanks for watching UK Pancakes, and don't forget to subscribe for more political chaos that makes reality TV look boring.